Math part of week 2. So this is option number 1. It says to sketch the graph of each inequality using the attached graph sheets. You can find graph sheets located at the end of your choice board, or you can just sketch a picture of a graph on some notebook paper. Either one will do. So before we start graphing or sketching any of these inequalities, we have to know what the 4 inequalities look like. We have to know that the greater than inequality looks like this. We have to know that the less than looks like this. The greater than or equal to is the greater than symbol with the line underneath, meaning that it could be equal to. And the less than or equal to is the less than symbol with the little line underneath. Those are our 4 inequalities. We have to make sure that we know those before we start graphing. These inequalities are very important. They tell us 2 different things. They tell us where to shade and how to draw our line. So let's look at where to shade. So if I am looking at these greater than symbols right here, if my inequality is a greater than symbol, I will need to shade above my line. So what I mean by shade above is if I have a graph and this is the line that is graphed, in order to shade above that line, that would be everything up here. We will be shading these inequalities. The less than symbols over here, if I have a less than symbol, it's important to know that we shade below. So if I have a graph that looks something like this, we have to know how to shade below that line. That would be everything down here below that line we would color in. Okay, so 2 things. Greater than, shade above. Less than, shade below. That's what our inequalities tell us first. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next thing that our inequalities show us. Alright, so here we have the inequalities again. Let's see the now. If it is a greater than or less than symbol without the equal to line underneath, this means that we will draw a dotted line. That's important. We have to draw our line correctly. If I have my coordinate grid and I have one of these symbols, I cannot draw a solid line. That does not work. What we have to do if it is a dotted line is draw a line dotted as so. The only time we have a solid line if it is a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to. If it has the solid line underneath the symbol, we will draw a solid line when we graph it. So if this is my coordinate grid, now these types of symbols you will see solid lines being drawn. I'm going to come up with 3 practice examples right here next. Our first practice example is y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 1. I would like you to see that this equation looks just like y is greater than or equal to mx plus b. So we know that we have an m, we have a slope, and we have a b, we have a y-intercept. We're going to use that to graph. I always begin with the b to graph, which is my y-intercept. Here it is a positive 1, so I put my point at positive 1 on the y-axis. Then I use the m to move. That is my slope. It tells me how much to rise over run. In this case it just says negative 2, but I know that that can be over 1. So I am rising 2, running 1. But the negative is very important. The negative tells us which way to run. If it is a negative, I have to run to the left. I will rise up 2, 1, 2, run left 1, and put my dot there. Up 2, left 1. I ran out of room going up, so I'm going to go the opposite way, starting from my original. I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1, which is just the opposite. Down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. I have made my points here, so let's now look at our inequality. Do I need to draw a solid line or a dotted line? It should be a solid line because looking at that inequality right here, it has the line underneath, so I should draw a solid line through my points. Perfect. The other thing is, where should we shade? This inequality is a greater than symbol. If it is greater than, I am shading above. I will be shading above my line, which is all of this up here. You should color in everything above your line. That is our first practice. Let's go ahead and try our second practice. If you need to rewind this video, pause it, you can watch it as many times as you need. Here is our second practice. Again, it looks like y is less than or equal to mx plus b. So if we're able to see that, we know our b is where we begin. So we're beginning at -3 this time. And my m tells me how I move. That is my slope. It is a rise and a run. I will be rising 1, running 2, and it's positive, so I'm running to the right. Rise 1, run 2 to the right. Rise 1, 2 to the right. Or we could go the opposite way. Down 1, 2 to the left. Down 1, 2 to the left. I have made all my points here. Let's see if this needs to be a dotted line or a solid line. If you look at your symbol over here, it has the line underneath, so that means it will be a solid line straight through our points. Then we look at it and say, do I need to shade above or shade below? You should see that this is a less than symbol, so we will shade below. So everything down here at the bottom will be shaded in our graph. Make sure you are able to determine solid line, dotted line, shade above, or shade below. The last example is a little weird. You will see something like this on your choice board. It says y is greater than 2. This is our b. There is no m in this equation. It's not y equals mx plus b. It's just y equals b. There is no slope. So that means we will have no slope on our graph. Our slope will be 0, but the b is still 2, so we're going to begin at 2. And if we have 0 slope, it will be a line, a horizontal line, straight across this way. I drew a dotted line this time because if you look at the symbol, there is not an equal to line underneath it, so you will need to draw a dotted line. It cannot be solid, it will be incorrect. Then I look and see, well, I need to shade above or below this line. It is a greater than symbol, so I will shade above. Make sure you check your assignment to see the different symbols that you have. You can use this video to help you and to walk you through your 3 examples.